Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the fourth and final part of the Half-Term Report series. If you missed the previous parts, I'll pop a card on screen now so you can go and check out part one and go from there. But in this part, it's all about Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes. Now, this is, as I'm sure you can imagine, going to be the one that causes the most divide. So please do bear in mind that these are just my views and my opinions. Let's kick things off for this final part with Red Bull, and it has been a very mixed season for the team so far. 12 rounds in, and it does feel very much like a case of what could have been. Reliability has been shockingly poor, by far the worst of any of the Renault-powered teams. You know, they had the double mechanical retirement in Bahrain, exhaust issues saw Ricciardo drop out in Austria, a loss of power for him in Germany, and the same issue arose for Verstappen at the Hungarian Grand Prix to add to his brake issues from Silverstone. That's a total of 6 mechanical retirements from the opening 12 races. That is just unacceptable. And that has left them a very distant third in the Constructors' Championship, and what looked like an outside shot at a title at one point has now surely gone. The team really do need to get onto Renault to get this sorted, and if it does come down, as we were discussing on Sunday, to integration problems from their side, Red Bull need to be sorting that too. It hasn't all been down to mechanical issues though. Their drivers haven't exactly helped the situation at times this year. Daniel Ricciardo, he had a strong start to the year, whereas teammate Max Verstappen was making far too many mistakes. And of course, that collision between the two in Baku, which saw them both retire, that cost the team big time. So whilst reliability has been poor, the team haven't exactly been incredible this year. There have been glimpses with some great strategy calls in China, for example, but I have been really disappointed with Red Bull this year and feel that as a team, they could have done so much more. Let's not forget that the experts were all saying that they were the second quickest coming into this season, and that never really happened. I mean, don't get me wrong, I never really believed it, but I certainly expected more. Daniel Ricciardo, he started the season so strongly, as I just said there, and he was spoken about as a possible title contender at one point. It was a great drive to victory in China, but his win in Monaco was exceptional. All the issues he had, and he still managed to drag that car to the end. Phenomenal drive. But he has certainly bore the brunt of the reliability problems so far this year. If you remove his Baku DNF and just focus on those non-finishes caused by mechanical problems, he's retired twice, and of course suffered issues through practice and qualifying sessions as well. So he could be so much further up in that championship. Max Verstappen, as I've already said, was extremely poor at the start of the season. He just seemed to be involved in some form of incident in each of the opening 6 rounds, and that put him under massive pressure. But to his credit, he bounced back brilliantly and deserves a lot more credit than he seems to be getting for how he's turned his season around. He was brilliant all weekend in Canada and in France, and then of course goes and grabs victory in Austria. Yes, there was a huge slice of luck, but he took full advantage of it to take a brilliant win. He was solid in Germany and was also looking good last time out in Hungary before his DNF. I guess in terms of Max Verstappen, you could say it was a first half of 2 halves, but I really do expect that he will surprise a few people come the second half of this season. In terms of grades, it's tough. For me, Red Bull have been poor versus what was expected of them this season. So I've gone with a C. Now, that may seem low to some people, but they should be right in the mix with Ferrari and Mercedes and in with an outside shot at the title. But they've thrown away too many points. Yes, of course, Renault gets some of the blame and the team are quick to point the finger at them, but they're not quite as quick to take responsibility for their own issues, and they're not quick enough resolving them. Daniel Ricciardo, he gets a B. You know, the reliability hasn't gone his way this year, but he has still managed to deliver some very impressive drives. And as you'll have already seen, Max Verstappen, he also gets a B, but that is based pretty much on the last 6 races rather than those opening 6 rounds. But if you think a B for the drivers is low, I need to say they've both taken a big hit because of the part they each played in Baku. Without that, those grades would have been higher, but I can't ignore it. Ferrari then, and I'm not going to lie, it's been a better than expected first half of the year. When they arrived in Australia, the talk of the paddock was all about how far off the pace Ferrari were, some saying as much as a second off Mercedes' pace. And everyone was talking about how much they were going to struggle this season. Yet, here we are, and they clearly now have the fastest overall package on the grid. And you could even argue that despite being second in both championships, they probably still are title favourites. But therein lies the problem. They should be top of both championships, possibly even with a very good lead. But there have been too many errors from the team in terms of strategy calls and from their drivers as well. Now don't get me wrong, they have exceeded my expectations, But when you look back over those first 12 races, they have thrown away far too many points. And whether people like it or not, a lot of that boils down to how they've treated Kimi this year. At times, they have compromised his races to try and disrupt Mercedes and aid Vettel. But at the same time, it's Ferrari, so it can't really be a criticism because that's how they operate and we should really expect that from them. And they don't really try and hide that. But again, as I said with Red Bull, what could have been had Raikkonen just been allowed to race and get on with it? Okay, it would have taken points away from Sebastian Vettel, but he'd be a lot closer to the top of the championship as well. I just feel like sometimes, and this season's another example of it, that Ferrari just tend to overthink things a little bit. Sebastian Vettel has shown a real return to form this year after what was a difficult second half to 2017. He has really impressed me and I still think, genuinely, that he will come out on top come the end of the year. He is showing signs of the Red Bull Vettel and he's got the best car on the grid at the moment, so I am fully expecting a lot more from him in the last 9 races of 2018. The big problem with him so far, though, are the mistakes. There have been far too many this year. And I'm not just talking about the big incidents. You go back to Baku, that dive bomb on Bottas. That cost him big points. Of course, yeah, he should absolutely have a go in Baku, but he could have waited a lap for a clearer chance. The crash with Valtteri in France was also a costly error, and crashing out whilst leading in Germany was probably the most costly of all. And that crash in Germany in mixed conditions can catch most drivers out, but they are still big points to lose. So that's where my frustration is with Sebastian Vettel this year. I've seen a lot lately about how poor Kimi Raikkonen has been this year, and I don't see that. You look at the results, he has had one more podium finish than his teammate, and despite having an extra DNF, the Finn is only 43 points behind Vettel. He's been very good this year, surprisingly so. So I don't get where this Kimi's been poor this year is coming from. As I've already said, some team decisions have cost him this season, and obviously there was that awful incident during the pit stop in Bahrain. But he has made his share of mistakes as well. That incident with Hamilton, for example, in Silverstone springs to mind, and the subsequent penalty. But he still delivered third place at that race. And he's consistently just plugging away, picking up those podiums, slipping under the radar a little bit, just getting on with it. So I don't see how people can say he's been poor. Could he have done more? Yes, absolutely. But couldn't every driver do more? As for the grades, it's a B for Ferrari, which I'm sure is going to go down really well with some. But whether it's liked or not, they have the fastest overall package and should be topping the Constructors' Championship at the very least. But some of their decision making when it comes to strategy and the mistakes that came with them have cost them big time, and they should have done more with the pace they've had. Sebastian Vettel is a tough one to call. In some ways, I think he should be in amongst the A's. He has exceeded what was expected of him coming into this season. And as I've said a couple of times now, people were not giving Ferrari much of a chance at the start of the year. So a base A would be fair. But when you factor in the errors, more so the ones in France and Germany, and the fact that he should have done more with the car that he's been given, that grade has to come down. So a very top end B+ is about right for me. Again, just my opinion, and I'm sure yours will differ. But as I've already said, I do fully expect him to take the title at the end of the year, and so that grade will be much higher come the end of 2018. Kimi, he gets a B. Look, he has exceeded my expectations so far this season, but again, when you factor in his errors and some of the gaps to his teammate as well, and that's at races where Ferrari haven't played any games, that grade needs to come down. But that does not mean for 1 second that he hasn't impressed me this year, because he has. He's impressed me and surprised me. And finally, for these half-term reports, it's current championship leaders Mercedes and another team with a real mixed bag of results and form. They were very much seen as a team to beat coming into 2018, but they really haven't been. Yet somehow they've gone into the summer break top of both championships. Yeah, perhaps more so due to Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel's mistakes, but they have been there to pick up the pieces when they've needed to, so credit where credit is due in that respect. But again, as I've said with Ferrari and Red Bull, what could have been had they not made so many mistakes? It has been a long time since Mercedes have made this many mistakes in the season, particularly when it comes to strategy. And even Toto Wolff alluded to that. So that is 100% something they need to be working on for the last 9 races of the year. They are second best in terms of their overall package and pace, but you can never write them off. But the second half of this year is going to be a really tough ask for them, and that development battle could be just as tasty as the title fight. But anyway, looking back over those first 12 races of 2018, the Silver Arrows have been solid. They've delivered some seriously good consistency, and of course pulled results out of the bag at races where they were expected and expecting to struggle. Monaco, for example, they grabbed that podium with Hamilton, and with some very smart team play, they got the win last time out in Hungary as well. Lewis Hamilton has been a bit up and down so far this year. You know, at the start of the season, particularly after Australia, he did look very flat, and there were even questions over his F1 future come the end of the season. He didn't look particularly happy or comfortable. Yet, despite all of that, he still grabbed 5 podiums from the first 6 rounds, and that includes 2 wins. But since Silverstone, his demeanour has flipped entirely the other way. Now, obviously that was helped by back-to-back wins in Germany and Hungary, but for me, what has been a big surprise this year is how he's dealt with setbacks. His comeback drives at Silverstone in Germany were very impressive, and yes, I know there was luck involved in Germany with Vettel's retirement, and yes, I'm fully aware the midfield doesn't exactly fight the front runners hard, if at all, but whether you love him or hate him, the guy deserves some credit for turning around potentially catastrophic weekends into great results. And at the end of the day, what matters is the championship. He takes a 24-point lead into the summer break, and many believe that that makes him the title favourite. But this season is ebbing and flowing far too much, and a 24-point lead, although I'm sure very nice to have, is absolutely nothing really. Valtteri Bottas has been one of, if not the unluckiest drivers on the grid this season, particularly when you look back over those first 6 races. He would probably have won in China had the safety car not come out. He could well have taken victory in Baku, but his tyre exploded. And yes, of course, if he'd licked the stamp and sent it in Bahrain, that could well have been another win. I mean, again, how different could his season have been? He could well have been right up there in a title fight, particularly when you add into the mix things like Vettel hitting him in France or the reliability issues in Austria. Of course, his teammate suffered with them as well, but still. What I will say, though, is I just can't shake this feeling that he's tailed off in the last few races. Maybe it's just me. Let me know what you think in the comment section. But he just hasn't been as on it as he was at the start of the season. I mean, perhaps with the team orders in Germany and the team game in Hungary, he's settled into a number 2 role maybe. That could be a reason. And hopefully he'll come back second half of the year stronger again. I don't know, it's just a feeling I have. When it comes to grading, I think a B is about right for Mercedes. They are fighting hard, and given that they have lost their dominance and that title as the fastest on the grid, they are doing a really good job to keep scrapping with Ferrari. But I just can't look past those strategy errors. I really can't. As for Lewis Hamilton, again, it's tough. On the face of it, you could say that he hasn't been up to the level that he has set over the last few seasons, but he is still top of the championship. He has been massively consistent, and as I've already said, has turned around potentially poor weekends into great results. And I mean, whether people like it or not, 9 podiums in 12 races can't be ignored. So I've gone with an A-. A little bit like Sebastian Vettel, that could be a straight A, but I have to consider everything, and he has had some poor weekends. China and Canada, they stick out for me. But let's be perfectly honest here, whatever grade I give him, or whatever I say, I'm going to get some stick from one side or the other, and get accused of hate, bias and fanboyism all at the same time. I love the internet. Valtteri Bottas, the last of the drivers I'm grading for this year's half-term reports. He gets a B, in a similar vein to Kimi Raikkonen, I guess. He has been unlucky this year, and the team orders or the team tactics, whichever way you want to look at them, have cost him points. But he's also cost himself points as well. Look back to Australia. Should he have made that move in Bahrain? And like I said a moment ago, he does seem to have dropped off recently, and that's a concern going forward that I can't just brush aside. But that is it then for the half-term report series, and as always, they were just my thoughts and my opinions on Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes, but what are yours? How would you grade the teams and their drivers? Have any of them surprised or disappointed you so far this season? And who do you think will take the title come the end of the year? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will be back soon with more content as ever, lots still to come over the course of the summer break. And don't forget to join us live this Sunday at 6 PM for our usual stream. In the meantime, though, you can follow me on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.